It was just this big family is the way I remember it, and how we could play and ride bicycles up and down sidewalk, boroughs. Elementary school was right there, and I could see the principal walk by every day and speak to him leaving the school, going home, because he lived in the neighborhood. And then there was my great grandparents, and they had the church, Salem Baptist Church, and everybody knew them. And then my grandparents, Mama Deet and Daddy Ed, and we were at the church all the time. And it was this big family because everybody around was more than likely related.
McCullough. I am the wife of Alfred Ronald McCullough. Alfred is the pastor of the Whitechapel Missionary Baptist Church, Prairie View, Texas. And I am a retiree of the Houston Post Office.
My name is Alfred Ronald McCullough, Sr. I am a fourth generation McCullough from the Arthur McCullough, Ed McCullough, with my father and grandfather. Native Houstonian, and I'm proud to be a McCullough.
4th of July at Salem. You ever attend any of those events?
I don't remember. I don't remember any of that. I remember being in that church. I remember being baptized. I remember him being playing.
How did it feel knowing that your daddy was on the pulpit or your grandfather was up on the pulpit being a child?
See, yeah, that it was always, you always had this sense of pride because you had that name. You bore that name, you know. And like I never thought about being arrogant or anything like that, but the name did carry it. You carried that type of personality with it, you know.
Back then, Independence Heights wasn't a wealthy community, but it was self-contained. Everything you needed was there.
Over 40 merchants out there. They had the lumber yard. They had dressmakers. They had Mr. Canada was the what you call him? He was a tailor.
Mm-hmm.
And in Mr. Canada's place, he had an ice cream parlor and cleaning and pressing, and he did it so much. Now the house, it's still left behind True Light on the corner of Macomb and 31st.
Oh yeah,
that was his home.
Oh, because you were McCullough, you held to a different standard than everybody else.
Well, yeah, being with Mama D, and I guess carrying that name, but Mama D and Mama Fox, what we got from them was we were taught manners. It was very important that you exhibit this attitude where you were always mannerable, always. You were aware that you had to be on your best, your P's and Q's at all times, you know. So that's mainly what I always got from them. You know, they and being with Mama Fox. Oh my God, she was the sweetest thing ever. And Mama D, she was always there, and Mama McCullough and Kaka and like I said, everybody around. It was all this love that was always present.
We came from people that were well known and in the community. My great grandmother was alive when I was even in my 20s, or maybe even older. As my grandmother's mother, my father's grandmother. And they were from the old school. They believed in speaking proper English, and they copied a lot from the Britishman, and they would have tea and tea cakes, and they wanted us to, especially me, because I love to speak English properly. I wanted to know English. I don't know why, but it was something that I chose, that I wanted to learn well. It was just in me, I guess, you know? And my aunts would teach me, when I would say something wrong, they would correct me, and I didn't mind at all. I wanted them to correct me, you know? And Daddy was around sometimes, and sometimes he wasn't, but we loved our daddy. We loved us some Ronnie McCullough. That's no joke. All of us did. All of us did. And we loved our grandparents. And everybody was just loving and kind, and no beat up on. Well, my mom beat us. She gave us hard love, but that's okay, because she did. It was for a reason. It was right, because it happened. And if it happened, it was because God let it happen. So to me, it was all good. All good.
My name is Alfred Ronald McCullough Jr. I was named for my father, but most of the people in my family call me either son or Little Ronnie and so forth. My mom was Yvonne McCullough, and obviously my dad is Alfred McCullough Sr. I'm married to Sylvia McCullough. I have 4 kids: Robbie, Sharon, Rhonda, and Candace. And Sammy has 1 child, Kobe. Robbie has 2 children, Byron and Mikhail. Candace has 3 children. She has a set of twins, and 1 son, Cinco, Will Bailey the 5th. And the twins are Zoe and Zion Bailey.
There's only a freeway, the 610 freeway, that separates Independence Heights from the historic Heights, because that's the way the city was divided, kind of sidetracking. The city was divided into heights and into wards. You had 1st Ward, 2nd Ward, 3rd Ward, 4th Ward, 5th Ward, and the 6th Ward. And then you had heights. People, when you say heights in Houston, they generally think of the historic heights, the Houston Heights, which is at one point was one of the wealthiest areas. That's why the Houston elite lived before the turn of the 20th century.
Remember when Mama Fox used to tell us all the time, respect your elders. That
Yeah.
was just drilled in you over and over again.
True.
Respect your elders.
Yeah, respect your elders, and that, all of those things, they stay with you and they mean something to you, because they form that in your formative years. It brings together that personality that you need to carry you through the rest of your life, and it's something that you don't ever forget, you know. So, and with those boys, we had all those boys, so we had to make sure that they were gentlemen and respectful, decent, and halfway intelligent anyway, you know. So, and then that's what we wanted them to get for, at least, we can't leave you money, we can leave you that, you know. and hopefully it'll carry into generation to another 2 or 3 generations. Yeah.
We were protected. Our grandparents protected us. They didn't teach us to be prejudiced. They warned us. The most I remember of my father telling me anything negative about a white person was when I turned 21. And my father said to me, "Winnie, are you ready?" I had no idea of what he was talking about. But then I said, "Yes, Dad, I'm ready." Later I found out he was talking about the world. Are you ready to face the world, the prejudice that you're going to find out there, and just the aspects of living and dying and living?
By us being like the older siblings of families, I think similar backgrounds, you know, we the oldest. But I think kind of like instilled us like we had to, it's all like transform and pass down
Yeah, that's true.
a certain strong will of character. We felt responsible for the siblings up under us also.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something we learned from, like, you know, our parents and their parents. And then, like, when I got into the McCullough family, I always heard about the pride factor on their side, you know, and McCullough about the certain responsibilities and certain positions they took up in the community there, you know, and how they always took pride in, like, making sure the community was taken care of as a whole. And so this lady here, you know, I mean, I'm sure she got it from her father and from, you know, her mother, and that's all like bound it up and create a good character. So we try to pass that along to our kids too. You know.
That's true.
My dad's name is Alfred McCullough Sr. My brother is named after him, Alfred McCullough Jr. My mom's name is Yvonne McCullough, who's passed now. She's been gone for about 15, 16 years. We do miss her a lot. She raised us to be courageous and to stand up for ourselves. And my mother was tough. She showed us tough love, but it made me who I am today. And I do appreciate it, Mom. Rips to my mom. Daddy was a forgiving father. He didn't put much pressure on us to do anything right or wrong. He let us grow up to be our natural selves, and I chose that route too with my children. I chose to not prune them to be a certain way, but I wanted them to grow up naturally. And if they chose to be good, which I had hoped and prayed for,
Yes.
then that's the way they would go. And I'm here to say each and one of my children have made me proud of them. Each and every one of them. George, Stevie, and Ashley. I can say nothing bad about my children. And if I keep on, I'll say too much because I can brag about them, and I don't want to brag. My family's kind of known for bragging, so I'm going to kind of skip that part of it.
All the history that she spoke about, I've actually seen the parks, I've seen the neighborhood, seen the houses that they grew up in the area, and it was quite a bit of experience, a lot of history. I remember visiting Houston after I moved to Atlanta, and we went to a museum down there in Houston, Texas, and the museum was a part of their history, you know. And when his dad, he was a walking historian himself, and he would walk us through the museum, and he knew at least 90% of everything that was there. So I was able to live the history and also some of the theory about what went on in Houston, Texas at the time.
The right land they came down here speculating for oil. Mm-hmm. Right, so they didn't get any oil, but they got this land. And he came up with the idea, Acres Home, he got the land in Acres Home and Independence Heights. But what he did, he set up a separate finance company, mortgage company, play with finance, nothing but black folks. They didn't have no money, but he made it available where they could pay for this land.
We sold the property in the Fourth Ward about 2 months ago. And McCullough had owned that property since 1870, you know, and held on to it until 2014, you know. And what had happened, the property taxes had just gotten so outrageous that we couldn't afford the taxes on it. And it was a relatively small piece of property. Originally, it was approximately 7,000 square feet. That was the old homestead. Now, there were various other properties that they owned out there. I found when I was doing research on the property, nobody knew when it was bought because everybody that knew everything about it was dead. So I had to go down into the archives of the city of Houston to find it. And I was down there for 3 days, couldn't find anything on it. And just by chance, I looked down there and I said, well, let me look at these McCulloughs, because there was a variations of spelling. We spelled it McCullough. Now, but back on the 1880 census, it was spelled McCulloch. And that's the reason why I couldn't find it. And then back then, they didn't have leaps and bounds and everything for the legal description, so that made it even more difficult. And this was part of the original plat for the city, because Houston, I think, was only founded in 1836 or something like that. So Houston was less than 50 years old when James McCullough bought that property.
They went back and got Dad McCullough's daddy because he sold the real estate out there. Mm-hmm. And that's how he got all those corner lots. Mm-hmm. And I was telling him, you know where the Bay's house is on the corner of Columbia?
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
That was his. Where the Reeds, he bought that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and Mr. Allen bought it because they got Mr. Allen's picture in that book. He had the mercantile store, mm-hmm. but he bought that property from Dad McCullough's daddy, and that's where they built the mercantile. Where his garage, Mr. Reed's garage,
right.
That was where the mercantile store was. And people are saying that it was Burgess Hall, but it wasn't Burgess Hall.
On the deed itself, it says James McCullough, F.M.O.C. And man, I racked my brains for 3 days trying to figure out what the hell is F.M.O.C. And then it dawned on me, free man of color. I honestly believe, even though all men at that particular time were free men of color, but it was like a badge of honor that he wore when he put that in. Now, he couldn't read or write. And I saw on the deeds on the property where I have, where he made his X on there. His wife couldn't read or write. Now, that was Sally McCullough. Sally McCullough was an ex-slave from your neck of the woods, from Atlanta, Georgia. As the story goes, she was married to another man when he met her, you know, and he was supposed to have killed this cat in a duel and brought her back to Houston. And they had 7 children. My great-grandfather, your great-great-grandfather, was Jim McCullough's son, Arthur McCullough. Arthur McCullough had 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls. Uncle Arthur, Uncle Jim McCullough, my grandfather, Ed McCullough. Then he had Sally, and then Hester, and then Loda. Loda is the last one that's living of that group, and that's who I want you to meet. And she's right down the street from Daddy.
My name is Loda Elizabeth McCullough Charles, and my dad was Reverend Arthur McCullough, and he organized the Salem Baptist Church, which is right down the street there, and he had 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls, and I'm the baby. I was the baby, and all of them are dead but me. I'm still here. I'm still hanging in here. I'm 85 years old, and I'm so grateful and thankful to the Lord to let me live to be this old. Ed was instrumental, and he worked in the civic club in this community. And he was he the president when
he was the first president.
First president. And so the student would bus. First, we used to ride the streetcar. Yeah. And the streetcar would turn right where 610 now. But it was 30th Street. And that was the independent heights, the blacks lived from 30th on back to across the track to about 38th, I think, 30th, 40th Street or somewhere over there. We had to pass all the white schools to go to Booker Washington, Yates, or Wheatley. There's only 3 black high schools in Houston. Booker T. Washington, Jack Yates, and Phyllis Wheatley. And that's where Ronnie went. He's the only one that went to Yates. And my sister, all of them, and brothers, they all went to Booker T. Washington. Yeah, and Phyllis Wheatley, well, it was 4th Ward, 3rd Ward was where Yates was, and Wheatley was in 5th Ward. We got all this first ward and 2nd ward, and then 6th ward and 4th ward. That's how I say 4th ward, 3rd ward, and 5th ward. That's where we all, the children went to school there. I went to Burris. Well, they built Burris over here, and I think it was
27 when they built the new one.
So what high school did you attend?
Jack Yates Lions.
Class of
54. January 54. See, because when we were going, we had the low and the high, and you had a graduation class in June and one in January. And I graduated in January.
who was Jack Yates, man?
Jack Yates was he was a preacher. He was a former slave, and he had his freedom, but he chose to go back to Virginia, back in slavery, so he could bring his family to Houston. And when he came, he was self-educated, but he was educated, and he was one of the first black pastors, black teachers in Houston. His name wasn't Jack; it was John.
John Yates.
John Yates.
Can you tell us about Daddy McCullough, Mama McCullough, where they were from, and all of that?
Well, all I know about Daddy was he was born and raised in 4th Ward. Mama, she and Cat, that was her sister. We called her Cat. Mama's name was Maggie May and Williams, and Cat's name was Carrie Bell.
His relationship to the McCullough family.
His granddaughter. He and Daddy McCullough's daddy were friends. And because Nanny Vice said that was the meanest man she ever met. He taught her. And that was Daddy McCullough's sister. He taught her. But his granddaughter, Rutherford Yates' daughter, Olee, married Daddy's brother, Uncle Arthur McCullough. And that's how
Was Jack Yates and Jim McCullough, were they contemporaries?
Yes. Yes, they were contemporaries.
What was the significance of 5th Ward?
That was a sophisticated.
So initially it was the 4th Ward. That's where all the educated and the wealthy blacks.
1st Ward and 4th Ward, yeah.
1st Ward.
Freedman time. 4th Ward was Freedman's time.
Right.
And that was where most of the elite lived at first, because that was where the settlement was. It was right downtown.
What about Cat and Mama McCullough, them growing up?
Yeah, well, see, they were orphan. It was 7. Mama, they had, I think it was 7 children. Mama had 7 children. No, she didn't have 7 children. Her mama had 7 children, but Mama and Cat were the youngest. Mama was the youngest of them. Cat was a little older than Mama, 2 or 3 years older than Mama. And so all their sisters and that they had before them, they died. And the Mama and Daddy, the Mama was doing slavery time. And the Mama, after she died and the Daddy died, well, they had to go from one relative to the other. They had a grandmother, her name was Hester. And Hester, she kept them until she got old, I guess, and died. and then they had an uncle, and his uncle, is they called him, I think, Buddy. I think, and she had a brother too, but anyway, they would have to go and stay with. They lived with their grandmother, and then they lived with some other relative, and they end up. The last one was, I think it was Uncle Buddy. I think they said it was, but anyway, Mama and Kake had to stay with them, and so I think that's when Mama got married. But Kaka, like I say, she would get whippings, Mama say, and see, and Uncle, what's his name, Uncle Buddy? I can't think.
That's
It's
what
some,
they call Buddy.
yeah. But anyway, he was kind of rough on them. They were rough. He was in January, and he was kind of rough on them. So I think once he had gotten, and Kake was crying, and Mama told her, stop that crying. Don't stop that crying, don't. And I don't know what she did is she tinkle or what in his hat. So Mama was a little swifter than Kake about that. She wasn't, as scary. Kake just get on her nerve. Kake crying, But anyway, Kake went wherever Mama went, and they both. Mama married before Kake. And so when Mama married, she took Kake in with her. Kake lived with her until she married.
Well, Dad McCullough loved her like a sister.
She was. She was really a live wire. We all liked her.
What was the saying Kaka used to always say? She's the third child of the third child.
Rochelle, it takes Rochelle.
Yeah, you should tell about that. Anyway, she
that 33rd song where she said the scripture, the Lord spoke to her until she was crying, "I'll guide thee with mine eyes." And I never will forget.
Yeah, that was Mama's.
Yeah.
Mama's motto. That was it. That was her first in there. I will guide thee with thine eyes. And so wherever Mama went, Kaka went. And so Mama and Daddy, they moved out here. Daddy's daddy had bought property all over Independent Heights, and he furnished them, bought the lot where Mama stayed. I don't know if he bought the same one where Kaka stayed or not. But
she was
anyway.
living with him when they first moved on I think it was the 1910 census. Mama Fox used to tell me stories about when Daddy was telling you last night how they had to go up to 20th some street to get the mail and so forth. And Mama Fox was telling me when she was walking from the post office one time, it was some little white boys out there playing. And it was one up in the tree and another one down on the ground. And the white boy hollered to the one in the tree hollered to the one down on the ground. Said, "I smell a God." And the other white boy hollered back, "What kind of God?" And the other one would respond, "Nigga." Those types of humiliations that you had, and wasn't a whole lot you could do about it, And so you just accepted it for what it was. Now, that's the negative side of it, but it was also a positive side of segregation. You had everything that you needed in your community. You didn't have to leave your community, and we supported one another. You went to a black doctor, you went to a black lawyer, you went to a black cleaners, you went to a black shoe shine shop. Mr. Hodges had the shoe shine shop up there, and you got your shoes repaired there, and you had a black cleaners. You had everything that you needed in your community, so you didn't have to. And we patronized our business, and black businesses thrived during that time period.